All right, welcome back to Blue by 90. I'm Justin, joined by Tanner and Kailen. Today it is Thursday, July 25th, and I was just told today's the last Thursday without football in our lives for the rest of the year. We made it. We made it.
We're so close. We're so close. I always get excited for the Hall of Fame game, and then I watch it, and like all the starters are pulled immediately.
It's the worst game ever. It's like worse than the Pro Bowl, honestly. And the Pro Bowl doesn't even exist at this point. But
it's football.
Yeah, it's football. Like you can at least warm up to the fact that football is right around the corner.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think I've ever watched it. I've like put it on. I look at the screen. I'm like, oh my gosh, football, and then I like end up doing something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I watched the pregame. You know, you hear I think NBC is the broadcast. So you hear the NBC music, and you're like, it should be like October 12th, like Sunday Night Football, and it's cold out. You know, it's starting to get to hoodie weather. But you know, for August, early August, there's worse things to have on the TV. The stretch from. And I know we're going to have thankfully the Olympics to watch. You know, I'm going to watch the men's Olympic basketball, but probably some other stuff, some swimming, things like that. But like the stretch from the NBA finals to like actual football, like week 0 college football is like the worst stretch of TV in my opinion. Like you just have nothing on unless you're our buddy Caleb who watches 162 Cubs games a year religiously. Not sure how he does it. I can't do that personally. I'll check the score on Twitter.
I'm a big baseball guy. I still can't do that.
He has a newborn too. That is just wild.
Yeah. Speaking of Tanner, you became a dad. Congratulations!
I did. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Baby girl was born on July 21st at 2:02 p.m. and mom's doing great. Baby's doing great. It's very surreal, but also real at the same time. Like I don't know how to describe it. It's a very, first of all, wide range of emotions. I've always been like a gentler person for the most part, and so this is like having a baby girl is like I tweeted to say like I'm the softest person now. Like certain songs.
Does it feel like you're like going through like a period where like something like a leaf falls and you're like, oh my god, like little things will like set you off and make
like.
You cry?
I don't know how much you guys or listeners are into country music, but Cody Johnson's a pretty big country music guy, star, I should say. And he's got a song called Dirt Cheap. And it's about like a farmer not wanting to move away from his property. And the guys are trying to come and buy it and, you know, development and all that stuff. And I never grew up a farmer. I'm not a farming family. But the one part of the song that always get me is he talks about under that cross is his best buddy's buried and it's his dog. But the line before that is the brown hair and the pink bow. And so that song would make me feel a certain type of way. But now when I hear it, my daughter has brown hair. Saying my daughter, by the way, is just crazy. Yeah. But like, you know, she hasn't worn any pink bows yet, but she's got them, you know? And I'm like, oh my God. So like, I hear that song. It's more so like certain songs or like certain scenes in movies now that if I watch, because we've been watching a lot of movies, putting on like a lot of Disney. I was going to put on Hercules, but the whole point of that movie is like, Hercules gets taken away from his parents. And I was like, probably not the best thing to watch at the moment. But like, there are certain things that like trigger me a little bit more. And I feel like I have, and I don't want to go on a huge rant on this, but like, I have a lot more like empathy and like grace for people now. I've always been empathetic, but it's even more so now. Like, I don't know. It's hard to describe.
Are you now empathetic with Ohio State fans? Like, oh
no,
God,
I mean like things that like matter, you know, like like real things.
No, I mean it's very real. Matters. The last 3 years were real.
It was real. But no, like, you know, if you're I don't know. I'm joking. Maybe. I don't know. I know you are. I'm also running on like no sleep too, so this will be fun. But yeah, it changes you and you hold your daughter and it's like, holy cow, you know, it's the coolest fucking thing I've ever experienced. So
now I'm really surprised that we didn't get a tweet that was like, this is my daughter, Bo Schembechler, or you know, like, come on.
No, man, no. We it's a very
you
cute
lost
name.
that battle. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, no. I get to name the dogs. Well, Claudia recommended the name. I'll share the name with you guys off. We're a little private. Especially with some of the things that have been tweeted at me when I announced our pregnancy and things like that. So I'm going to take it, you know, a little bit slow on that front, but it's a beautiful name and Claudia came up with it and I'll share it with you guys. And I think you'll appreciate it because it's sentimental to me, which is really cool. But yeah, man, I was telling Kailen before the show, like how quickly football season is approaching and how quick the offseason went. I think for me, and I want to get your guys' thoughts, but for me, it was like preparing to be a dad and like all the things and like going to the doctor and like the countdown. So I'd love to know for you guys, like, does offseason fly by for you too? Or is it just me? Because it feels like it's like, holy cow, we're already here.
Well, I definitely think, I mean, when your season goes through mid-January, there's the data shows that it is a shorter offseason than everybody else.
Yeah, if your season ends late November.
Right. Then, like, yeah, it's probably been a really long offseason for some people, like in middle of Ohio or something. But for us in Ann Arbor, it's a shorter offseason. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it is like we're 6 days away from August, which feels insane. And then, like, guys are in camp. I think next Wednesday, Michigan football reports to camp, and it's like, then it's going to be like, holy shit, it really is here. Like, we're going to get guys at the podium. We're going to get like talks about like, all right, depth chart. Like, even we'll talk a little bit about Sherrone and media days and stuff like that. I saw him talking about some camp battles already and stuff like that. And it's like, all right, now we're getting into it. So, yeah, why don't we talk about media days real quick? I mean, I think that first of all, awesome guys to represent Michigan. First of all, Sherrone, we can talk about him doing a fantastic job up there. But Max Bredesen, who friend of the pod, love him to death. He's the man. Dono, love him to death. He's the man. And then Makari he's kind of just the old head, just like chilled out guy. But it feels like I thought, for the reigning national champions, it was like pretty humble up there. And it's like, it's kind of a weird vibe, right? Because like normally you would come up there, I would assume you're the reigning national champs. Nobody can touch you. Maybe you're talking your shit, but like these guys are different. They approach it very differently. Obviously Sherrone is the new guy in town too. So that adds a different vibe too. But like, Dono, who we know is pretty outspoken and has some charisma to him, even he was pretty humble today.
He definitely felt more subdued. And I mean, shout out Sherrone Moore, right? I saw him do that a couple times. That was great. But yeah, those guys, they felt humble, but it felt like quiet confidence, right? Like they had a secret. They knew what they were bringing. They'd been there, and they were like, it was almost like, you already know what our product is. Come beat us. And that, it felt really good to be on that side of the table for once.
Yeah, I watched Sherrone's presser and his Q&A. I watched Donovan. I watched Makari. I didn't get a chance to watch Max's, but the one thing I'll say about Max, and I'd love to see his, him up at the podium or the Home Depot folding tables that they got set up in there for players to sit at and take questions.
It does feel like they could do a little bit better,
right?
At least a tablecloth or something.
Yeah. But the one thing, and I probably said this on the pod before, but getting to talk to Max, the one or two times that I have, like the one thing that he's such a football guy that he's like, I don't really watch football except for my brother, who's in the NFL. I play football and I watch our film, but I don't like sit there and watch games. I don't watch the NFL. Like that's a football guy.
Yeah.
Like you love football so much that you love like the contact and the physicality of the sport. You don't really love like what we love about watching it. And that's like ultimate football guy. So I'm excited to watch his. But like the one thing I noticed talking about Makari and Dono, like they were just
real quick on Max too, before you go into that. Can we just talk about how amazing it is to have a fullback go represent us at media days? Like that is Jim Harbaugh's dream, right? Like that,
Michigan.
That is like everything that Jim Harbaugh stands for. And I'm shocked that and maybe Ben Mason did before, so I might be speaking on a turn here, but like how that is just perfect. It's perfect for Michigan. It's perfect for Smash. It's perfect in Jim Harbaugh's legacy, and now Sherrone Moore taking it over. Like that's exactly what we want to be. And like, that's the guy I think we all want to be like the voice. Like that is the culture. That is the representation of Michigan football.
Well, and think back, I mean, how long ago was it? Michigan didn't have a fullback anymore.
Right.
Like there was a time where Michigan was going 4 wide. And I know that's what football has kind of changed into, but we talked about it a lot last season and the last 3 years. Like when everybody zigged, Michigan zagged. Like Michigan went in a different route and it's still modern football, and a lot of the concepts that they run are like awesome, but it's with a fullback, and they still run a lot of variations of the spread offense, and they'll get under center a lot more than other teams. But like you see it in recruiting too, and I know we're going to talk about recruiting later, but like just an example, Eli Owens, who's a 3-star tight end, but he's being literally recruited for the Max Bredesen role. They're going to have that H-back type of player in the offense because it does so much in goal-to-go situations, 3rd and 2s. He can also, I think Max could – we've seen it in the passing game when he was more of a tight end, when he wasn't wearing number 44 against Hawaii, a couple of years ago. He had a big catch and run. So, to have a fullback represent Michigan, it just makes a ton of sense. But the one thing, and I'll let you guys speak on it, but with Donovan and Makari, like they were so quick to kind of pivot to their teammates and like heap praise on them. And you could see that culture is still there. And I know we're going to talk about Sherrone's. I just want to say this real quick. Like he emphasized that a lot, talking about the brotherhood and the process to be great and the culture that Michigan has built and making sure that stays and is upstanding with the program moving forward. So you can kind of see it trickle down from Sherrone down to the leaders, and not just the guys that are in Indianapolis right now that were able to go to media days. Like you see it from a lot of the leaders on the team. Like it's just, they want to talk about their teammates. I think it was Max that was talking about TJ Guy and couldn't stop gushing about him because he goes against him in practice. And, TJ might be a big piece for Michigan as a pass rusher this year. Like you just see that culture, and it's not just talk. It's not a facade. Like it's real. And you see that in how they talk about their teammates.
I was just going to say, so one, that's like, again, a Jim Harbaugh thing, right? The pass off, talk to this guy, right? Like that is real. And I think everyone, like you realize that like all these kids are so impressionable, right? And they take on the characteristics of their head coach, right? And that's a Jim Harbaugh thing too. And I love that that's turned over into the Sherrone Moore era as well. But at first when you would hear last year JJ talk and Blake talk and all these guys talk, and then now this year Donovan and Brady and Makari and et cetera are all saying it, at first you're like, holy smokes, those are well-trained guys. They are well-trained for the media. Shout out Dave Abloff. He has done his thing. They're not going to say anything poorly. They're not doing that. But then you like hear it more and more. And, the couple guys, like the guys that I know personally, like that shit is real. They love each other. They're like the Brady told me one time, I was like, so how's the locker room? This was more back in like March, because like things were new. I was like, so like, what's different? What's going on? How are things going? And he's like, dude, we're all just bros. Like it is just like literal family. And so I think that I love like Sherrone has that mentality even more than Jim Harbaugh, where he's just like one of the boys. Like they're just like one big family, and he'll die for his guys. And like that goes back to Sherrone after that Penn State game, literally crying for Blake Corum. Like literally, I fucking love you. And every Ohio State fan that tweets that GIF, you're an idiot, because it was one of the best moments of our careers, of our lives, of our fandom, and it led to a national championship. So you're a moron. But like that is like these guys would die for each other. They really would. And you can just tell, to your point, Tanner, that like these guys, they'd rather talk. They don't want to talk about themselves. Last thing that I noticed too, if you follow any of these guys on social media, they never post about themselves really, but they're always reposting their buddies, their teammates on their stories and posting about their guys. And it's like, that's real as well.
Very true. Yeah, no. And I think that's huge, right? I think that brotherhood is definitely what allowed Michigan to take that next step, right? That they were always on the cusp. So it's interesting to watch some of these other teams that are in the Big Ten or that have just joined the Big Ten, right? Listening to the Ohio States, the Oregons, right? Teams that are similarly on the cusp of, becoming championship teams. I was even listening to some of the Oregon guys going like, we're just like brothers now. We hang out, we're family. It's like, we've been saying that for a couple years now, right? So it's kind of interesting hearing some of the Michigan rhetoric starting to rub off on other teams.
Well, and the one thing I did want to share too, that I'm sure if you watched it, you saw this, but I loved like the Harbaugh-isms, attacking each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. Like there's, Jim is off in LA, and I want to actually talk about that because there's a couple things that I find very funny about the media out there who doesn't really know Jim Harbaugh, but you see a lot of that in Sherrone, and he talked about, hey, like there's not a lot to fix, right? Somebody asked him about like, how he wants to run the program versus Jim Harbaugh. And he's like, there's not a lot to fix. Like, we're going to improve where we can improve. But, like, there's a lot of things that worked, obviously, coming off of a 15-0 national championship season in 23. So, it was.
And also just Sherrone learning from one of the greatest coaches of all time in Jim Harbaugh. It's a pretty good gig for Sherrone to, obviously huge shoes to fill. There's no doubt about that part. But he's learned a lot to be able to step into this role, too. And, I mean, just want to talk about him for a little bit here too before we move on. Like for a guy that has only been in this role for 6 months, right? And got thrown into it at the end of the season of needing to do the press conference and get all the media attention, all that stuff. Like I'm really impressed with how he speaks, how he's handling himself. And just like it feels like he's handling the pressure really well, which I can only imagine after, you get thrown into things for those last 3 games, you then go to play in a Rose Bowl, you then go play in a national championship, win it. The whole thing flips. Now, all of a sudden you're the head coach. Like it's gotta be an absolute whirlwind of a year for him, of 6 months for him. Right. And so like, he probably hasn't had a minute to even breathe. So for him, it's probably I just really think I'm really impressed with how he's handled it all and the way that he said things, especially when you look at to the UCLA head coach who stumbled over himself for 7 minutes straight, which was one of the most strangest press conferences I've ever seen. Like that could have been Sherrone, but instead, like I love that he's our leader right now, and it feels like he mentioned it. He wants to be the head coach here for a long time and win a lot of championships. That was a quote from him too, and I'm sitting here like I want him to be the head coach for a long time too. Like this is our guy.
I just want to add because we've been talking about Jim a little bit. Like I love Jim, but it's kind of nice to have a coach go there and like have like a suit that fits right and is tailored. And can we just talk about the striped suit that Sherrone was rocking?
Dude,
that was sharp. I told Claudia, I was like, that lineup is crisp. The fade. I mean, Sherrone, I think you're seeing why he is an elite recruiter and why he was the guy for the job. I mean, just like you said, I mean, he just exudes so much confidence and just has me so excited for the future of this program. Just like had me fired up. They asked about Michigan being the hunted now because they've won the national championship, and his answer was awesome. Just talking about we've got to continue to put the same amount of work in as we have the last 3 years to get to that mountaintop. Like every answer was spot on and just had me really fired up. He also had some nice tidbits about some of the freshmen coming in, if we want to get into that too. Talking about Amarion Stewart and Channing Goodwin as being electric, which, at the receiver position kind of need some of those guys to step up and play a little bit early. Talked about Jair Hill looking like the guy at cornerback too, which I think is huge. I think Jair Hill has NFL potential, like day 1, day 2 draft pick potential. So just, the media days give us a lot of sound bites, but they also give us a lot of good nuggets of information and get to kind of see, we obviously know who the leaders of the team are, but cemented in the fact that they flew down to Indy with those 3 guys. And man, I'm just really fired up for the season and seeing what happens against Fresno State in week 1. And then obviously the big one against Texas. But, as far as media days go, you're not really going to glean too much, but like I'm just really fired up, and I definitely think Sherrone's the right guy. I've always thought he was, but like every time I hear him speak, when he's out on the trail, like it just is reinforced every single moment that you get a glimpse of him. And I know he's fired up to get his first fall camp underway as the head man, and I'm excited to read what reports come out. I don't know if it's going to be as tight-lipped as when Harbaugh was here, but we're going to find out, here in about a month and in a few days, because we're coming up on the football season like we talked about.
I feel like I just really liked this media day made it real for me with some of these West Coast teams coming to the Big Ten. So I thought it was kind of fun to listen in to Jed Fish kind of like come back to the Big Ten. I was like, oh man, I kind of forgot about that guy. He was off my radar for a little bit, but there he is, right? Head coach now. USC, you get to hear Lincoln Riley. Some of that, it became real for me. That actually brought some more. The duck in the river there.
I mean, that's fantastic marketing by Oregon to put the biggest duck of all time. That was hilarious, honestly. I got
right, and their social team is just crushing it, right? Yeah, that was amazing. So that just kind of got me more excited, more juiced, and just really made me go like, the season's actually around the corner here. So I love that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, there was Ryan Day has had some quotes as well. So he made his rounds at Media Day. I mean, I know we're obviously a Michigan podcast here. The fun thing would be to just be shit on Ryan Day. We might get into that a little bit. But like, first of all, going to Media Day as Ryan Day is probably the worst fucking thing in the world right now. Like, it's where Jim Harbaugh was at going to Media Day in 2021 of, you haven't beat Ohio State, right? And so like now it's like, all right, your rival just won the national championship. You haven't beat him in 3 years. Everyone's like looking at you like, okay, you're on the hot seat, blah, blah, blah. So I'll give him a little bit of grace where like everyone's going to spin every single thing he says into something bad. But Tanner, I know you've got the video and the quote if you want to rip that.
Yeah, I wanted to type out the entire quote, but essentially it was a soundbite of him talking about losing the game the last 3 years and kind of the process of him and his program going back and looking at what went wrong. And I'm not going to be one to put words in his mouth. And I know we do crap on him a lot, but dude, let's be honest, he's a hell of a football coach. And the fact that Michigan has beaten him 3 years in a row in the way that they have is extremely impressive and is, I think something that Michigan as a program should be applauded for. But essentially, he was talking about making sure they have the right guys in the right seats, the right personnel, right? And that was basically really just kind of shitting on Kyle McCord, which I know is kind of the easy way out for them. But at the end of the day, like, who recruited him, who evaluated him against other quarterbacks in the 2021 class,
including maybe somebody named JJ McCarthy,
potentially. But the thing that stood out to me was he said that was a very good team, but we still should have won the game, and we didn't. My question is, in a game where you led at no point, why should you have won the game? My second question is, do they ever lose a game because they lost a game? Is there always some sort of reasoning behind things? Is there always some sort of excuse, right? They love to shit on us when we talked about the 4th and 1 in 2016, which is still to this day a very questionable call. Whatever side you're on, like, that's an extremely close call, and it's probably going to go whichever way it's on the field. Yep. But they love to crap on Michigan and Michigan fans and Jim Harbaugh for that. So I just I'm wondering where that energy is when we're a couple plays away, one bad half. Like, we should have won that game, but you never led. You never led the game.
Yeah, you'll never get the PJ Fleck. That was just a better team, right?
Right.
No.
Right.
And he can't.
He said Michigan was a good team. He said Michigan was he said it was a good team, right? That was part of the quote. But yeah. To me, it gives off a little bit Matt Patricia of like, we've got to be better. We've got to do better. All right, we've got to get our coaches better. It's like at some point you just got to do it, right? You can't go out there and say we've got to be better every single time, right?
Right. Just be better.
Yeah, you just have to be better. Obviously, Ohio State is at a whole different level than the Matt Patricia Lions. But which is like, the thing is, I saw what's the record? He's 40-0 against everybody but Michigan in the last 3 years
in the Big Ten. Yeah,
like, that is an absurd stat. If he goes 40, whatever, let's say they go 51-0 in the conference this year, except for and they lose to Michigan again. 51-0 against the conference outside of Michigan. You lose to Michigan 4 times, you're fired. That's going to be the situation in the fall. That's insane.
This could be a really interesting season, right? Like, there's a real possibility that they could get a rematch, right?
True.
3. They get 3.
They could get 2 rematches, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
So
I mean, what happens? What happens in the scenario? Let's say Ohio State wins the game in Columbus. Somehow they get a rematch in either the Big Ten championship or the college football playoff, and Michigan beats Ohio State then and keeps Ohio State out of the playoff, and their season is over. Does he still get fired?
I might ascend to heaven if that. Honestly, you don't want to lose that game under any circumstances. But if you were to tell me that I will give you Ohio State beating Michigan in Columbus, but then I will then give you Michigan ends Ohio State's season in the college football playoff. I don't know. I had to think about it, but that sounds pretty hilarious because they would talk their shit and it would suck, right? That game. We know how it is to be on the other side all too well. We're starting to really know how it's like on this side, though.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. So it's one of those things that is very interesting about college football in general because you have so many. I mean, yeah, you have Texas OU in October, right? And you have some other big time rivalry games, but you've got the Iron Bowl, Michigan, Ohio State, the game. You've got a bunch of games that last weekend of the season that are huge, important rivalry games, even if they don't impact the college football playoff landscape. And typically, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, Auburn is going to. But, I think about, UNC, NC State, Nebraska, Iowa. There's a lot of big-time games. And so as these programs, the ebbs and flow of college football, you may be up, you may be down. So these programs are going to start finding themselves in playoff scenarios. It's just really interesting to see that, we're going to potentially have some rematches of big time rivalries in college football because of the new 12-team playoff.
Yeah, that's going to be something I think a lot of people are going to struggle getting used to, myself included. I'm a little bit on the it feels like the old man side of the argument of no, play Michigan, Ohio State once. That game is sacred. It's better off when that game means everything. So I think I'm going to struggle with that. If there's a rematch the following week in Indy, I don't know. Part of me is going to be this is stupid. We just played that game should mean everything. The other part of me is going to be holy shit, Indianapolis would be the most insane place of all time if it was just Michigan, half Ohio State fans.
Well,
can you imagine that?
Also imagine just beating them twice in a row in the same season. That would just be oh my.
But then if you're on the other side, right, one of the team, it's gonna be add crazy levels to the rivalry. But Justin, I actually. There'd be more of them, but I don't really have to imagine Ohio State fans being in Indianapolis because even when they don't go, their team doesn't go, those people still hold on to their hotels and their tickets. So they still go down there and root for whoever Michigan's playing. So, I don't have to imagine that, but a Michigan, I know what you're saying, but a Michigan, Ohio State, that would be bonkers. I don't even know if anybody could handle it, any of us.
Also, okay, I'm going to transition then. You're going to give me a good segue there to Quinn Ewers. Calling Michigan that team up north still. And I don't really care about Quinn saying that, to be honest. I could give two shits about it. What makes me laugh so much is how many Ohio State accounts I saw quote tweet that and be like, oh, I'm rooting for the Longhorns week 2, baby. Let's go.
You weren't already?
We know.
Shocker.
We know that. Okay, so now, but let's think about what that means. Your guy, Quinn Ewers, that was in Columbus and could have been the savior last year and this upcoming year could have been the answer to beating Michigan, who transferred out and went to Texas, got to the college football playoff last year when you didn't. You're now that's my guy. That's my guy.
Well, he does have the chance to be the first signee from the 2021 Ohio State recruiting class to beat Michigan. That was one of the greatest recruiting classes of all time. So,
right, to hang their hat on.
Yeah, they can be excited about that. He's got as many gold pants as those guys have. So he's one of them.
It makes me laugh because I think that that right there is the epitome of what Ohio State fans shit on Michigan fans for a decade previous to 2021, right? Is having to utilize other people to beat Ohio State. And especially like I'd be pissed at Quinn Ewers. Like I'd be looking at him like, dude, you could have been here winning us a national championship, right? Like that. I don't. It's crazy to me that they're like, yep, I'm in. Go Quinn. But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Quinn Ewers, like the reason he went to Ohio State over Texas in the first place is because Texas was really kind of a dumpster fire at that point under Tom Herman. They did not have a good 2020. The defense was a mess. And so with Steve Sarkisian coming in, it made a lot of sense for him to transfer. But I'm with you. Like that's I don't know. Like it's just weird. I don't know. Especially for a guy that didn't really do much, because I'm trying to think of like a parallel for Michigan of like who would be somebody like in that, I guess like Xavier Worthy. I don't know. Like he wasn't even on campus, So like, I don't really know. I mean, obviously you have guys like AJ Henning who left on great terms. I rooted for Eric All, the Cade McNamara thing, whatever. A lot of people are, split on that, but like, it's weird to me.
I'm not saying that you need to like, especially when it comes to 18 to 22-year-olds. I'm not saying you need to like shit on and hate for the rest of their lives every kid that transfers out of your program. I'm not saying that at all.
I'm just saying
though. Like it's like weird that they're like once again doing the Joe Burrow dance of like attaching themselves to somebody that transferred out so that like they can align with that success. Like,
and I never really hear any other fan base doing that.
I agree.
Do you guys hear any other only Ohio State fans.
I'm sure we pay attention to Ohio State fans much more than any other fan base out there, but still, I do like. I don't know. I'm trying to think of other examples of like guys that transferred out and then had like major success, like Kyler Murray.
I don't ever hear Texas A&M fans like talking about him.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's hard to like now college football is like there's so many transfers, so it's hard. Like there's nobody like standout guys, like my first thought was Russell Wilson, and that was 12 damn years ago, 13 years ago. It's like, I don't know. I've never interacted with a North Carolina State fan though, so like I don't know.
What do they do on like football Saturdays down there? I'm really like,
I mean, they get after a little bit. I mean, I'm sure they're supposed to be good this year, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, and I do think it's it all comes down to because he used that team up north. They love that. They just I don't know. They love that. I don't know. Ohio State. It's not that hard. Like like I know they got really butthurt over the Brady Hoke thing, which is hilarious because like they do the same thing. Like
literally,
it's just a nickname. It doesn't matter. I also found out that Ole Miss and Mississippi State, like they use those terms as well. The team up north, the team down south, or whatever. So
I didn't know that.
I guess we're not the only ones that have to deal with that.
You learn something new every day. All right. There was breaking news this week as well. We've got a documentary coming. Get your popcorn.
Wait, can I say one thing real quick before we get to it? Before I forget, Michigan football posted the photo of Sherrone, Macari, Donovan, and Max down in Indianapolis, and Colson Loveland, our beloved tight end, commented Stallions, but he spelled it with 2 L's. He clearly wasn't referencing anything, but it was very funny. I enjoyed it.
It was also, we got to give a shout out to State and Liberty. All the boys were looking real good at media days. So they got that.
Might do a collab sometime soon. You never know.
There may be something in the works here with your boys at Blue by 90 too.
I might wear one of their blazers for work. Who knows? Who knows? That's a real possibility for me.
Who knows? But yeah, so we've got a Netflix doc coming out. Untold Stories, or Untold Stories, whatever.
That's their sports doc. Like that's their 30 for 30 line. That was the Swamp Kings. That was Johnny Manziel, Manti Te'o, all that stuff.
Yeah, you knew it was coming, right? It was only a matter of time.
There was no way that this wasn't going to happen.
I heard this in Indy last year that somebody met him at a bar and he's like, "Yeah, I signed a deal for a documentary." Like I heard this secondhand partying in Indy.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. Well, my first reaction was they are going to, because Harbaugh is such a like clickable type of figure and like he draws so much media attention. My first instant reaction was like, oh my God, they're gonna paint Jim Harbaugh in like the worst light ever, try to make him the villain, all this stuff. But I had a few people in the know text me after I tweeted that, and they're like, no, it's supposedly supposed to like paint Michigan in a very good light and put the NCAA in a terrible spot. So
can he start snitching in this documentary? Like he just starts saying names. Like I guarantee he did not get this. He did not come up with this on his own. I feel like that is almost a certainty that there had to have been some sort of similar type of program doing this same little scheme. And I want to know where it came from.
Well, I think that is I don't know if he's dropping names, but I do, from what I know, I think that is kind of the point of it, is like it's everywhere. This is what happens in college football at a lot of different places. And for Michigan to be the one that's like been painted as they are the creator and the only person doing this is like insane. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, one thing I do think is very funny, which if I was a non-Michigan fan, I would be like, what the fuck, is like, how are we getting a documentary before the NCAA has come out with anything at all?
Are they ever going to?
That's a
like,
great point.
I don't know.
It's weird. Like is there going to be a notice of allegations? Are they just going to let it die very loudly? Because people are not going to let this go. And this is also going to be a great reminder for me to remember from last season. Because I forgot, because I don't know if you guys knew this, but Michigan won a national championship and I kind of got over everything. But there was a lot of people that I hated last fall that I was like I was done with. A lot of Big Ten coaches, shout out my boy PJ Fleck. He never fell into the BS. Kirk Ferentz never really gave a shit. But a lot of whiners in the Big Ten Conference, player safety, fuck out of here. There was the podcast, the CFB nerds that like were equating Michigan sign stealing to Hendon Hooker getting his ACL torn somehow. Like just the most delusional people. And yeah, look, we're biased. Like even if Michigan did do something wrong, we're gonna be like, nah, we're good. Like obviously,
and also like I'll be very honest too. If this was Ohio State, Michigan State, anybody else, like I'm probably leaning into conspiracy theories as well and like going ham.
I'm more so doing it for like the rage bait stuff.
Yeah,
which is probably what a lot of other fans, like the normal people, are doing. But I also like. Do people realize that it's not Madden? You can't just like from the sidelines call like 17 different hot routes and like audibles for your safeties and your linebackers? Like, I don't think they know that.
Nobody gets that part for sure. I think that everyone's like, well, you knew they're playing. It's like, well, no. First of all, no. Second of all, like you still have to play the game. Like that's part of it. So
honestly, I love how much he's like leaning into it, because I feel like he's just gonna be like smiling in front of the camera, like you know what else I was doing? Like, yeah, he's just gonna be like,
just don't get us in trouble, and I'll love it.
I also want to see like you ever see those crime docs where they like go to somebody in a dark room and they have like a voice changer on them? Yeah. I want to see like the other sign stealers, like
100%. Like there has to be some like the new characters that are going to come out of this documentary I hope is going to be incredible. There are going to be some like fake people or something like that. Like,
are you in it?
I am not in it. Thank God. I'm not in it.
I'm pretty sure Portnoy's in it. I think he tweeted about it. So you got to think like if they've got like Michigan, like, people like Dave Portnoy and like other Michigan centric folks, that it's probably going to be a softball. And that's the thing too, when we talked about the Untold series from Netflix, if you watched the Swamp Kings documentary, Urban Meyer was just like, yeah, like, dude, we won a shit ton of football games and it was sick. Like that was basically the entire podcast or the documentary.
The title stayed true. Everything was still untold. There was nothing that was told.
Johnny Manziel, they're like, hey, look at this like sick play against Alabama. And then like, they were like, yeah, Johnny Manziel had a drinking problem. It was like, okay. I will say the Manti Te'o one got I feel like there was more things that I learned, but again, it was like it's always sympathetic to like the main figure. Otherwise, you're not getting them. If you wanted to do University of Florida football documentary from 2006 to 2010, you would not be able to get access to all those guys, right? If you were going to do it truthfully, what happened behind the scenes, all the arrests, all the off the field issues. So this feels like something
you can't get them all for sure.
Yeah, no,
at least one of them. One of them you can't, for sure.
Yeah, no, you can't get him. But like, yeah, it's like one of the. That was good. I like that. Dark humor is the best humor, in my opinion. Sometimes not on a podcast, but that's okay.
I was just stating a fact. I don't know. I was
I watched the unrelated, but I watched the OJ Simpson 30 for 30. Like they didn't interview OJ,
right?
Like so they told the whole story.
Stalions, I think he's gonna fall on the sword. If there were ever like if it gets to any point like there's 0% chance that this guy knowing everything we know about him, the manifesto, the fandom, everything, there's 0% chance he's like outing Jim Harbaugh or outing anybody in this.
This guy's not saying the victors like that and then trashing the program.
He's gonna deny everything till he dies, and then he's gonna try to whatever he's gonna do is gonna have Michigan looking good. And I think what's gonna happen, Michigan State and Ohio State fans are gonna freak out even worse. It's gonna be they're gonna have the biggest temper tantrum, more than they already have in the past. And listen, again, I don't really blame them because I think I would be freaking out too if I was them. If it was just like this elaborate thing came out, they won the Natty, the NCAA hasn't done anything. There's a documentary that comes out, and it's just like, haha, they were doing some stuff. All right,
I really hope Harbaugh is on it because now he's not part of the program anymore. If he's just like, what if he just came out and said it, right?
Can we real quick? I touched on this earlier, talking about Los Angeles media. Can we talk about the fact that they just don't know Jim Harbaugh? I don't think they did any research to him coming to Los Angeles, because I saw a tweet from I don't know if he's a beat writer. I didn't look at what publication he was with, but he's like, yes, Jim Harbaugh does wear cleats to football practice. So I was like, brother, where the fuck have you been for the last 20 years?
There are pictures of him sleeping with cleats on.
They're also Jordan 12s, which I love. You know, he's keeping the Jordan relationship. But then I also, real quick on Jim Harbaugh, man, because he's like, people also reacted to this one, and he's pretty much said this exact quote at the opening presser or even Big Ten Media Days. He said on the first day of training camp, his exact quote: "It feels like being born. It feels like coming out of a womb. It's comfortable, and then poof, you're born. The lights are on. People are looking at you."
I love it.
And they were shocked.
I can't imagine LA, just the LA news reporters that are not sports reporters or something, them trying to figure out Jim Harbaugh. There should be a kind of you have a focus on Jim, but then you also have people following the media people around too, where it just gets them they get done with a Jim Harbaugh press conference and they all kind of look around at each other. They're like, what the fuck was that? What did he just say?
That should be the documentary.
Yes, it should. It should. Everyone trying to figure out what Jim Harbaugh is saying, because I think the LA vibe is so far from what Jim Harbaugh stands for on the spectrum of life. I'm trying to get we should have a good reality TV show would be you put Jim Harbaugh in a room with anybody from Love Island or any of these reality TV shows, and he he just has to converse with them. He just has to try to strike up conversations. And then they're like, "What? Who the fuck is this guy?"
Are there any Jim Harbaugh impersonators? There's Elvis impersonators. Is there any Jim Harbaugh ones?
I think Frank Caliendo did Harbaugh, but it was when he was with the 49ers, and it was basically just him just very flamboyantly doing Jim being mad at officials and calling for a
Molinaro does a good one too. Joey Molinaro.
Yeah, he does. some of his stuff is kind of corny, but he's also got some really funny stuff. Like, you know, and it's but his Harbaugh is pretty good. I like his Saban's really good. His
Saban's really good. His Saban's really good.
I don't know if you guys remember that video of one of their players at Alabama. This was probably 10 plus years ago, but he did a Saban and it was so good, and like did it in the locker room when Saban wasn't there, but like ESPN caught it on camera. It's very good. I feel like Saban's one of those guys that's just very impersonable. I don't know if that's a word. Impersonable. I don't know. Making up words on the spot here. But we should definitely just have like a Jim Harbaugh impersonator just roaming the big house every Saturday. Even if there's not a game. Like I want him in cleats. I want to hear click clack like on the sidewalk. If you can't get through the gate, I need a Jim Harbaugh impersonator literally every Saturday.
I love it.
If you're a Jim Harbaugh impersonator, send us an email.
Please.
Let's connect.
Please. Blueby90 at gmail.com.
Add me on LinkedIn, whatever works.
So speaking of at the big house, I believe is it this weekend barbecue?
I want to say it's Saturday, Sunday. Yeah.
Saturday, Sunday, barbecue at the big house. So we got some recruiting. The list that I received today was about 3 pages long of how many guys and recruits are going to be there. So it feels like in Sherrone's first go at this thing, he's going all out. So I think that this is, the Sherrone Moore recruiting era. It definitely, the page has been flipped. You feel like in the past month, finally, like it's felt like, all right, they've gotten the ball rolling. Things are going here. I fully expect this barbecue to be like, a big deal. I feel like we're going to get a lot of recruits coming. There's going to be a lot of buzz coming out of it. So Tanner, do you want to talk about anybody that's coming in specific?
I mean, we talked last week about Andrew Marsh, Jerome Miles, Jaden Sanders. So Jaden Sanders, a corner out of Texas. I think Michigan has I wouldn't say substantial, but I think they're out in front of some of the home state schools. Andrew Marsh is a big-time receiver. I believe he's in the top 70 of the 247 top 100. So he's a big-time receiver out of Texas. And then Jerome Miles is an Ole Miss decommit. I think he decommitted back I think it was June. But he's from Utah. He actually just picked up an Ohio State offer, which definitely – so, like, he's a 5-star, right? But it also feels like, why now?
Yeah.
Ryan Day, you and Brian Hartline, you son of a guns. Because they'll do that. Like, you can go and look at guys that they've taken – just so they don't go to Michigan. Like you could go, there's so many guys and they don't end up doing anything. Now he's a receiver, so it's different in that program because they pump out receivers like it's nothing.
But our receiving recruiting has been pretty good lately. Like, I think that Kirk Campbell pitch is landing pretty dang well with these receivers.
And Ron Bellamy, I mean, if he had a passing game that was just average, like what could he do on the trail? He's from Louisiana. He went in and got a couple guys out of the state of Louisiana. Now, I believe Philip Wright, I've read, is going to be attending something for LSU this weekend, but he's also still coming to Ann Arbor. So hopefully Michigan's able to kind of, but it's LSU, and I mean they have however many first round picks at receiver. Just had a guy win the Heisman, so it's like that's a tough recruiting battle. He's committed to Michigan. I don't know what that's going to look like, but Michigan's in on a lot of guys. Just a ton of 2026 kids. A lot of big-time guys. One guy I'm really excited about out of Cass Tech, CJ Sadler, top 50 player in the country, receiver, like Michigan kid, right? Cass Tech, Detroit, Michigan kid through and through. So there's so many guys on the list. There's a lot of commits, so a lot of recruiting will be going on, not just from the coaches, but from the guys in the 2025 class. And Michigan's lone 2026 commit, Brady Hart, big-time quarterback, is going to be in attendance as well. So working on the 2026 guys. So, can
I ask, like, for Philip Wright, I'm not trying to talk poor on the kid, I promise you this, but I just don't understand, like, the committing and then just continuing to go on visits.
Here's what I would say to that. It's because if I had to guess, it's, hey, LSU is coming in late because I'm about to commit to Michigan. I'm still going to commit to Michigan because I'm not losing my spot at Michigan. But if you really want me and you're going to recruit me like you actually want me and need me versus like slow playing me, then you're going to have to earn it. But also, I mean, it's really tough to fault a kid from Louisiana wanting to go to LSU. I get that.
No, for sure.
I wish Michigan had a border around its state like some of these schools do, like Ohio State does for the most part. I mean, they've had some guys kind of fall through the cracks. Louisiana. But then you look at like Georgia. They don't even, like Georgia's the most talent-rich state, and like UGA doesn't even really get those guys, and they still pull in top 3 classes. I don't know. But yeah, it's going to be a big weekend. We'll probably recap it more as we get closer and we'll start to preview the season. Kind of transition from like recruiting talk, because like I follow it, but like I don't know if you guys can tell, like that's not really what we're truly passionate about. It's fun, it gets you fired up, but like getting into the season, into fall camp, like that's when the juices start flowing. You start getting ready, you get that crisp air in the morning before it gets to like 85 degrees and you're dying. But you get that small dopamine hit of like, oh shit, football's right around the corner. You got the cicadas coming. You can hear them at night. Like when that, it's still a little humid, but it's like 70 degrees at night. Like that's when you start to kind of know football's right around the corner. I'm starting to sound like Jim Harbaugh. Like he probably talks about it.
He's like something about the cicadas, like
I'm telling you, man,
the seasons and like
I'm not even bullshitting you.
You've been in the shell all summer, right?
Would turn that into like, I usually read like the Farmer's Almanac, and I know exactly like this, this is the moment when it's football season.
Did you hear what Kailen said? That was incredible. That was a Jim Harbaugh. He said, Kailen, go ahead. Talk about cicadas. What did you say?
The cicadas, you're in your shell all summer, right? Then you break out right at the end. Wow. Just ready you got your pads on already. Like you're ready to go.
Wow. If that's not in his next press conference, I don't know what will be. Wow.
Are we his ghostwriters now?
Can we? We've got to send that to him somehow, because
forget the impersonator.
I want to see the scraps from Jim Harbaugh's ghostwriters.
Yeah. What didn't make it into?
Yeah, that's what we say.
He had a whole like soliloquy on or monologue on birth, and they were like, Jim, like you can't talk about like cutting the umbilical cord, and you can't talk about some of these things. Like you had to cut it all.
Oh man, to be a fly on the wall there, just in any room that Jim Harbaugh has ever been in.
Last thing I want to add, because I know we're getting up at the time, and I'm a dad, so I got to do stuff. Did you guys catch the video where Jim Harbaugh talked about not being born on third base with the Chargers? Like, is he just
okay? That
wild.
Video, yes, we need to talk about that video. I totally forgot about it, but it was like 100% scripted. So it wasn't even him just spouting this off as a press conference. It was scripted, and the opening statement, it's their mission statement, and it's a complete dig at Ryan Day. He is running the biggest victory lap of all time around Columbus. I've never seen anything like it.
I haven't seen this, so I gotta watch this. This is hilarious.
Yeah, you do need to watch it. And also, I love that Joey Bosa's he's a cool dude. That's got a sting in Columbus. Joey Bosa's he's actually pretty cool.
Joey Bosa too, really probably doesn't give a shit about Ohio State that much, because he's just hang out with chicks and crush beer and sack the quarterback. That's me.
Right. Well, then that's all. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
No, that was Nick.
Oh, Nick was Nick. Set out. Yeah. But I do think. Wait, who's the bigger frat boy of the Bosas? I know they're both pretty fratty, but I feel like Nick might be.
I think Nick.
Be frattier.
Yeah, I think Nick. Also, listening, I think Joey's a lot more eloquent, but listening to Nick Bosa speak is just. I don't know, man. It's interesting. Hell of a football player.
It doesn't feel like there's much going on up there other than sack quarterback.
Yeah, he's like Gronk, and that's not a bad thing. He's made over $100 million in his career already, and he's our age. So he's younger actually. He's younger than me. So I'm not talking
way
shit
more
here.
than we ever.
Yeah, I'm not talking shit here. Guy's a hell of a football player, but listening to him talk is quite the experience. But people might say that about me too. So why be judgmental?
Yeah, no.
You can get after the quarterback. That's all that matters.
I was trying to go through their Twitter to find this video. But yeah, it was it had a lot of just a lot of Harbaugh isms. But the fact that they put that the born on third base in their literal mission statement of the Chargers this year is incredible.
Yeah,
So.
got to round third and get to home. So,
all right. Well, we are rounding third and getting to home, which is football season. We are getting close here. So we'll have more podcasts coming out here soon as we turn to August and football camp starts. So we appreciate you guys. For us, you can follow us at Blue by 90, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Blue by 90 podcast on YouTube and blueby90.com. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.
go Blue.